Okay, good morning. This is the last page of the Chapter 3 notes for AP Stats, example 327. This is where we see how to read a computer regression output. It's fairly common on the AP exam for information about a linear relationship to be presented in the form of a computer output from a statistical program. And as a student, it is your responsibility to know how to read these outputs. As you can see from my markings here, there are certain elements that for now, we don't have to know what they are. We should just ignore them. They could still show up when this sort of output is presented, but for now, we're going to ignore everything that I have crossed out here. The left portion of it would be the part that you do need to know how to interpret, and you will need to know this as early as Tuesday of this week. The first column says predictor, it says constant, it says days. The word constant will always be there. It's a reference to the constant that's being added or subtracted in your LSRL equation. As you can see in the column just to the right, I have the corresponding number under this coefficient header being labeled as a y-intercept. So you need to know that the number to the right of the word constant is always a y-intercept, which you can then use to put together part of your equation. The next row says days. The word that shows up here will be different every time. It is a reference to the explanatory variable, which in this example is a number of days, okay, number of days studied. And just like in the LSRL equation, where the explanatory variable is represented with an x, it's going to have a number multiplied onto it, and that number lives just to the right, which I have labeled as the slope. So we can take these two numbers in the coefficient row and convert them into an actual equation of an LSRL. As you can see, I've done that in part A. Predicted score being the response variable, is equal to our constant intercept of 2.544 plus our slope coefficient times the x variable, which is number of days. I could have alternatively put a y and an x here if I had defined those above. Below those two values, we see an s. We see r sq, which is r squared. The s is a standard deviation. Which standard deviation is it? It's the standard deviation of residuals, which tells us on average how far off our predictions tend to be from actual y values of actual data points. So for part B, what is the standard deviation of the residuals? We know to grab whatever number is sitting down here by the S, and then we can interpret it. Predictions of score on the AP stats test from our model tend to differ from actual scores by about 1.532 points. For part C, we interpret the R squared, also known as the coefficient of determination. This value tells us what percent of the variation in our Y variable is actually explained by the relationship with the X variable. Part C doesn't directly ask for R squared. We have to recognize the phrasing here, percent of variation in whatever our response is. That's explained by whatever our explanatory is, which would be R squared, so we simply report the number. You will see this show up on Tuesday, and you will need to be able to work with it. So if you have any questions, make sure to let me know Tuesday morning before class. Thanks for watching.